Hi, my name's Josh. Welcome to today's Music Transition Designer walkthrough. I'm going to just take you through a demo project and show you from start to finish how you can get some basic music implementation in your game using Music Transition Designer. So I've just selected to import the package. It has dependency on Unity addressables, so we're going to install that and then import the package. When the package is first installed, it will prompt us to create our core data assets. Before we go into our asset manager, we're just going to mark our music files as addressable. This allows them to be loaded by Soundbanks into memory. We keep the files on decompress on load while authoring to ensure we can get high resolution waveforms. This can be changed after authoring if you need to. I'm also going to move these files into our new Music Transition Designer folder and place them in audio files. Here we have our Asset Manager, which is our centralized editor for all things MTD. Let's start with music tracks. We can double click to open the editor and now select our audio clip. This will automatically open in the audio files section of Music Transition Designer. Let's start with Area 1. Here we have our music track editor and our high resolution waveform. You can scroll to zoom in and out. Click anywhere to place the playhead. This automatically snaps to the grid, but you can shift and drag to fine tune. This track is 80 beats per minute and has 4 beats per bar. We can choose other time signatures here if we need to. Beat subscription allows this track to trigger Unity events, for example, synchronizing gameplay movement or triggers to the beat or to the bar, or when a track ends or changes. Our entry point is defined in milliseconds from the beginning of the audio file itself, rather than in beats and bars. This track doesn't have any lead in, so we're going to keep the entry point at 0. The exit point is where the track will end or loop. We're going to set this to bar 17. We can either type bar 17 in here and press set, or you can set to playhead. Set to clip ends takes it to the end of the file. This track doesn't have a lead in, so we're going to leave this at 0. The lead in is audio which plays before the sync point, also known as pre-entry. The tail is audio that plays after the track has reached its exit point, for example across a loop or when a track reaches its natural conclusion. We're going to set this to 4 bars. We can optionally set track markers here, however we don't need to for this basic implementation. We save and exit. Now we're going to do the same very quickly for our remaining tracks. All of these tracks share the same BPM and duration, which means that they can crossfade between each other as different gameplay states are triggered. Now we're going to assign our state groups. We're going to have state group 1, which is location. And our second state group going to be combat. We'll now assign the states within each group. Validate and enable. Save and exit. If I try to create a state group with the same identifier, it will not validate. This is to ensure that when triggering state groups changes through code, that we just have a unique identifier. We can either use a direct reference to the asset, the state group name, or a runtime accessible GUID, which is generated with each asset. Likewise, each state must have a unique name and will not validate if the names are duplicated. We're now going to create our state tree, the asset used by the playback system, which determines which tracks should play on which state combinations. We add our state groups to the hierarchy. We're going to create 3 branches, one for area 1, one for area 2, and tension, which is going to be the location between the 2 areas. We don't actually have any combat in this demo. This is just to showcase how you could use adaptive music if you did have enemies in the environment. The first path is our first area with exploration. These columns are assessed as OR within a column and across columns. So for example, if I had area 1 and area 2 here, then regardless of which area we're in, so long as exploration is playing, it will lead to this outcome. But here we want to only be area 1 plus exploration, area 2 and exploration, and this tension track we want to play regardless of the area, so we choose any. Now we create our state outcomes. Area 1, area 2, and tension. These are assessed from top to bottom. If a path becomes unreachable due to settings in a higher branch, it will show a warning. This branch is unreachable because the logic is already completely covered within this branch. Note that these still have errors here because these assets haven't been set up yet. These will automatically be resolved when the assets have been validated and saved. We also have cascading validation here. Because the state outcomes are currently invalid, our state tree is also invalid. Likewise, if one of our states were invalid, for example, because we have a duplicate group name, and we try to save, we will see that these also have validation warnings. Over here you can see all assets which have validation issues. Now onto our state outcomes. Our state outcome assets define which track should be played when the state path that the state outcome is attached to has been reached. Area 1, and we can keep our default settings here. It will play from the entry point, it will play the lead-in if it has one, it will play until the exit point. We can also set markers here if we have markers assigned. It's set to loop, and it will play the tail across the exit when it loops. And again, we can loop to the entry point or to markers. We don't have any markers set up, so we're keeping it with the default. And we will use the track volume as specified within the music track asset itself. We can assign outcome categories here if we want to create more broad stroke transitions, for example, between all areas and all combat variations. For now, we're just going to use music tracks. Note that it has now been validated. Area 2, validate and enable and save. Tense, validate and save. And we can now see that the state tree no longer has any issues. Now we've assigned our paths and which music tracks played when the path has been reached, we can now assign our transition rules, which define crossfade behavior for triggering new audio. We'll create all of these first. This rule is going to be two-way. We're going to use the same rule to define behavior from any to area 2 and from area 2 to any. We also need to assign our generic none to any and any to none. We can organize our assets within the asset manager by creating folders. So let's create one for our generic rules. And one for our exploration. Any to none will trigger whenever a track is stopped and there is no more music following. Any to none. We'll set safety crossfade of 100 milliseconds. We'll set it to trigger immediately. Validate and save. None to any will be triggered when we first start audio from silence. We do not need any fade in for this. We will trigger it immediately. This transition rule will handle all fades to and from our second area. We're going to set it for two-way so that the rule works both directions and we only have to set up one rather than two separate rules. Trigger this on beats 1 and 3 to ensure that it lands on a strong beat. And we're going to use a 2-bar crossfade. So 2 bars for the fade out and 2 bars for the fade in. And we set our playback start position to sync in real time. Now for area 1 to tension. We're not going to set this as two-way since we have different transition behavior that we want for this implementation. Again, we will sync at beats 1 and 3. That means that the transition can be triggered to occur on beats 1 and 3. It will set to real time. And we're going to set a minimum play duration of 1 bar here. We're going to want half a beat for this one. And we're going to offset the fade by half a beat. This means that the fade will begin half a beat earlier than the sync point and will then have fully faded in by the time it reaches the sync point to ensure that we land exactly on the strong beat of the bar. We'll do the same for the incoming track. Validate and save. So our final transition rule, which is tension to area 1. We'll trigger it on the strong beats again, sync in real time, and set a minimum play duration to prevent state spamming. This one is going to be a longer fade again of 2 bars. Let me just double check all those assets. I think that should have a minimum play duration. There we go. We now have all of our tracks and triggers set up. Now we just need to create the sound banks so that we can load them into memory at runtime. We're going to load our source state tree, which contains all of the references we need to load this sound bank. If we wanted to add stingers, we could add them here. And if we wanted to add any transition rules that aren't found within the state tree, then we can also add these manually. Most straightforward is just to load any state trees that you want loaded for this scene. Populate the sound bank, and it finds all of the relevant music tracks, the state outcomes that they're attached to, and any relevant transition rules that are required for these tracks. That's it. Now we need to load our scene initializer. In Music Transition Designer Assets, you can find the MTD Scene Initializer prefab. We're going to load the sound bank that we want to use for this scene. Set our initial state tree. Populate initial states from the tree. We'll load up all the state groups that are attached to it. And these are actually already set to the settings that we want. Playback will be set to start, so music plays as soon as the scene has initialized. Now to set up our triggers. We have some already set up here, very, very basic. One which covers this half of the map. And another one for the path between the two locations. We're going to add our MTD trigger enter on area 1. And also assign MTD state control, which will be used as a reference for the trigger. We're going to open up the actions list and drag our state control reference here. It's set up to require a player tag. This can be changed. We don't need to use a cooldown for this trigger, but the option is available if you want to. Now for MTD state control, we're going to use set state. These are the other options that are available. We select our location state group and select the desired state. We're now going to do the same for trigger exit. We drag in our reference, select the state group, and when we leave this trigger, we're going to trigger area 2. That's it. We now do the same for our tension. We'll add 2 state controls. We'll just put these in a sensible order here. Drag in the components. And this will be for the combat state. As we enter, we'll go into tension, and as we leave, we'll go back to exploration. Before we test it at runtime, we can use our preview window to audition our transitions. We load in the sound bank, which contains all of the assets that we need to audition. We're going to set area 1 exploration and set this as our active tree. We can save the session for future reference. If we hit play, we will now hear the area 1 music. We change to tension and press transition now. The tension layer will start to play in sync with the previous audio. Changing to area 2 won't do anything while we have tension, because our tension track plays regardless of the location. Changing to exploration will trigger the new locations music. And finally we'll go back to area 1. Seems to be working fine. All of the music used in this demo was composed by my friend and colleague Dave Milne, who is audio co-lead with me at Scout Audio. And the demo scene that we're using for this project is Cyberpunk City by Hive Mind. So, all of our transitions are set up and working. Our scene audio is initialized. And our triggers are set up. So let's give it a go. We're in area 1 here. This alleyway is where the tension music will trigger. As we exit the alleyway, we'll go into the second area. Now our transition there from area 2 to tension to area 1 was quite quick. The triggers were executed faster than the time required for the transition to occur in full. As transitions are queued, the area 1 music started to play as soon as the tension transition had finished and had also completed its 1 bar minimum play duration that we set up in the asset. I hope that tutorial was useful to get you started. Now this is a new package that's only just launched on the Asset Store. So if you encounter any issues or any bugs, please do let me know and I will endeavour to fix them as soon as possible. Likewise, if you have any other comments or suggestions or feedback, please do get in touch and I'll get right back to you. I'd love to hear your thoughts and suggestions for this package. Okay, thanks very much.